every other child is running around and not being able to focus. And I know teachers, the teachers are very stressed for this because when they originally started to teach 20 years ago, it wasn't that way. So yeah, there's a dramatic shift. But you know, the more things shift and the worse things get, the more people wake up and realize, hey, we've got to do something.
In your clinical practice, you see a lot of people.
Right.
What's different today than when we met 20 years ago?
Well, it's pretty dramatically different, actually. Believe it or not, things have really shifted on the earth. And one of the big shifts is genetically modified foods. And not just the genetically modified foods, but the pesticide they use on that called glyphosate. I didn't know this right away. I mean, it's a terrible pesticide. It's probably carcinogenic according to the World Health Organization. But beyond that, people didn't know it's an antibiotic. And it's in the air, it's in the water, it's in the food, it's in the soil. It's just everywhere. And what it's doing, it's sterilizing what we call our microbiome. And when the microbiome starts to die, then it gets taken over by fungus and yeast and parasites. And so this only happened, you know, to a minor degree for people and from various reasons from taking, say, regular antibiotics. But now the majority of Americans are breathing and eating and, you know, just experiencing this antibiotic all the time, every day. And this has had a dramatic effect on people. It's making it so they can't digest certain carbs. They can't digest traditional foods of humanity like grains and legumes. And because the gut becomes inflamed, the yeast and fungi eat holes, so people have leaky gut, they have inflamed gut, they have all kinds of sensitivities, and it's affecting the children. If you go into a kindergarten today or a first grade, it's unbelievable how much ADHD there is. It's everybody, every other child is running around and not being able to focus. And I know teachers, the teachers are very stressed for this because when they originally started to teach 20 years ago, it wasn't that way. So yeah, there's a dramatic shift. But the more things shift and the worse things get, the more people wake up and realize, hey, we've got to do something. So I'm pleased to be able to offer some solutions, or what I feel are solutions.
What are the top 3 recommendations you find yourself giving to people these days?
Well, where I start generally, people, if they're going to shift their lives and, get beyond all this conditioning, they normally have to start with quieting their mind. So quieting their mind is my number 1 recommendation through Tai Chi or yoga or meditation, prayer, whatever it takes to get a mind that's clear and focused. And then
It's so great to hear you say that because I thought you were going to say eat something.
Eat something. No, I like to start with, I think, what you guys call primary food. And then the next thing is that people integrate their mind and body through exercise of some kind. And then the third thing, I do like to look at foods. And, I don't like to restrict people. I like to say, look, here are all the categories of healthful foods. And just look at those. And then I say, you can eat any of these categories, but when you're starting out and you're full of infections, like I've been talking about, a lot of times we have to restrict certain carbohydrates a bit. We have to restrict certain other foods. And then eventually they can, blossom out into all the categories of healthful foods. Like the categories of healthful foods would be like grains and vegetables and legumes and nuts and seeds and seaweeds and fruits, and then healthful dairy and healthful other animal products. So those are the basic categories of foods that are available on the planet. And I don't like to restrict people, but at first, just to cure them and get their gut working again, and all that's part of that. There is some restriction, and it's number 1, avoiding sugars. So instead of what you add, my thing is, first of all, what's ruining your health right now? So normally it's very, very sweet foods. It's hydrogenated fats. It's bad quality fats. It's polyunsaturated fats that are refined and denatured and oxidized. Almost all of them are that way. So it's getting people off all the really junky things. And then, getting off the white flour, of course, and the white rice, and the denatured milk and the bad quality animal products. It's quite a process,
Yeah,
you know.
it is.
But people can do it because, you know, everything I suggest is traditional. So they can always think, well, my grandmother might have ate that way or a little more that way, you know. So,
But that wasn't so long ago.
yeah.
So a lot of people who will be watching this are health coaches.
Oh.
And so what's something you could say about the need for health coaches, or where you see that they fit into the healthcare system?
People now, you know, as we suggested earlier, people have maybe been on some bad diets for a few generations. And you know, white flour and white sugar have been around since the 1850s, 6 generations or so. And so a lot of people think that, well, it's just the way people eat, you know. And so this is where the health coach comes in, because there's tremendous conditioning now in our society. And the more conditioned you are, the more you get stuck, and the harder it is to shift. So I feel the health coach is the lubricant that makes all that flow. And it's just, you know, it's really one of the best professions there is, I think, because it helps people change in ways they're not quite ready for, but they know they need. And so, you know, it's just one of the most compassionate events going on in our country right now, are all these health coaches.
Always a pleasure, Paul.